For the last few years, Universal Orlando has been facing a somewhat dire food service dilemma. Now, this may be somewhat surprising to hear, given the fact that over the last decade or so, Universal has seen tremendous strides in food quality and variety throughout their parks. I mean, heck, just look at what they're doing over at Epic Universe. I mean, the stuff over there, it's unfathomable to even imagine the fact that this stuff is not only being sold in a theme park, but is being sold through quick service restaurants nonetheless. I mean, they are really thinking out of the box there. And though sure, there are still some restaurants both at Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure that are not quite up to snuff with the rest of them and haven't gotten the same love that a lot of these other restaurants have gotten, and certainly need their menus to be addressed and updated and upgraded. Ultimately, that's not even the issue that I'm discussing here today. I have full faith in Universal that after the opening of Epic Universe here in just a few short weeks' time to the general public, I'm sure they will unleash their army of chefs onto these outdated restaurants to fix up and spruce up those menus. No, in fact, the issue I'm talking about here today is a very isolated one. It is a very specific case of a situation where Universal has created a great food product in a fine location, but the issue is that they are suffering from success. The food product is too popular, it's too high quality, and simply put, the food operations that are currently in place for this place aren't able to meet the demand. And maybe at this point you've put two and two together, but the restaurant that I'm referring to here is Central Park Crepes, a food stand at Universal Studios Florida. Now, in case you haven't been here before, let me give you the quick rundown of this place. Essentially, more or less, all they sell are crepes, but they are crepes that are, of course, wrapped around a whole slew of different ingredients, whether they are savory or sweet. And where the real attraction comes from here is, of course, obviously, these crepes and these treats are of high quality. They are delicious. There's no doubt about that, but they're also priced rather competitively. They are priced like a high-end snack, and as a result, end up being a really good bang for your buck because you actually do get a lot of food out of these crepes. It could be very filling. In fact, it could be a whole meal's worth of food here for a arguably discounted price. And between the quality of the food, the uniqueness of the food offering, and the competitiveness of the price, it ends up being a really attractive offer for a lot of guests in the park. Not to mention the fact that this stand does command a lot of attention. There is a window to watch the chefs make the crepes right in front of you. And of course, every single meal is made fresh to order. And that's another big advantage that puts this crepe stand ahead of many other quick service options throughout the parks, which will often pre-make a lot of meals and a lot of food before, say, a lunch rush, meaning you might get something that was sitting on a warmer for maybe minutes to potentially hours before it actually gets in your hands. I'm not even going to beat around the bush here, folks. The bottom line is, this place is great. There's no question about it. The food is great, the atmosphere is great, and of course the price is pretty dang good as well. However, the only issue is that the fact that this place is great is an open secret at this point. Nobody is unaware about the greatness of this location, and you can see that in the lines that this place builds up. You would be considered a rather lucky duckling if you walk by this place anytime after noon and do not see an absolute mob of people standing outside the location waiting to receive their crepes. The actual ordering process at this location is rather smooth, rather efficient, but the bottom line is that because every single crepe is made to order, it's made fresh, it's made right in front of you, it takes a long time to make all of these crepes, and ultimately what you tend to get after the lunch rush starts is a massive buildup and backup of guests waiting for their meals. And we've already discussed how the chefs making the food right in front of you behind that plexiglass window really brings a lot of attention to this location. Well, guess what also brings a lot of attention? When you have a ton of people just standing outside of it waiting for their food, it's going to ultimately attract a lot of people to this location that maybe otherwise weren't planning to stop there, had no idea it existed, but now are like, man, there's a lot of people waiting for something here. It must be really good. And as a result, the line just sort of grows out of control because a longer line begets a longer line. And the fact of the matter is that this line can often, if not on most days, spiral completely out of control to the point where you are waiting not just 5 to 10 minutes for your meal, but quite literally tens of minutes for your meals, possibly even over 30 minutes if you have, groups of families in front of you that are asking for multiple crepes. The line can be ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is that this is not necessarily a recent phenomenon, okay? This has been going on for at least the last few years, right? A couple years after the crepe stand first opened. And let's be real, folks, next to nothing has been done to address this issue. But, in all fairness to Universal, how are you supposed to address this issue? It is simply a case of you do not have the capacity to meet the demand that this restaurant is pulling in. But this is just a snack stand. There's not enough room to accommodate that amount of demand. You cannot just shove more chefs in there. You cannot just shove a larger kitchen into the space. It's not necessarily that easy. However, now with Epic Universe now being put in the rear view mirror, I do think there's an opportunity for Universal to really sort of tackle this issue. Because after all, by not addressing the capacity issue here, what you're resulting in is obviously money being left on the table. A lot of people looking at the line and turning the other way, or people, actually placing an order, hopping in that line and being sorely disappointed and having their guest experience hindered significantly by having to wait in that long line to receive their food. And that's really the worst kind of line you can wait in at a theme park, right? If you're waiting in a line to get in the park, okay, that's fine, that's understandable. If you're waiting in a line to get on a ride, okay, well, that's kind of what you're there for, so that's okay, and you fully expect that going in. If you have to wait a long time to get food, that is the most frustrating kind of wait you could possibly have at a theme park, because it is keeping you away from what you actually came there to do, what your main objective was to do at the park, which is to experience the shows, experience the rides, experience the attractions, and ultimately this wait for food is holding you back from doing that. But you know what? As crazy as to say, there may actually be a simple solution for Universal here. I know, kind of insane for me to say, given the fact that I just said it wasn't going to be easy to sort of address the capacity issue, given the fact that you were just working with a snack stand. However, what if I said you don't have to work with just a snack stand? Because folks, if we just kind of crank our heads a little bit here and look across the streets, just across the pathway, right across from this crepe stand is Cafe La Bamba, a quick service restaurant that has been only sort of sporadically open, seasonally open at Universal during the day. Oftentimes it is used for special events and for VIP tours. This is kind of like their go-to eating location. And I have seen it open a little bit more, to be fair, during the park days recently. But that might even be more reason to take this location and say, you know what? We can go ahead and maximize this space, make it a whole lot more popular by moving the crepe stand into a full-on restaurant building like this. In a sense, this would be somewhat similar to La Creperie over at Epcot. However, unlike that, which is a sit-down restaurant, I'm imagining still keeping it quick service, but instead utilizing the much bigger kitchen to be able to meet the demand that these crepes clearly are demanding. And another great benefit this would have is the fact that you could also expand the menu. Right now, the crepe stand has a very limited menu, and it often changes throughout the years. One of the best crepes that I ever got while going to the crepe stand was the chopped tripletta. That was removed from the menu simply because they don't have enough room or enough capacity in that snack stand to accommodate that many different types of crepes. By moving to a quick service restaurant that has a much larger kitchen, they could accommodate a much more diverse and varied menu. Not to mention that another issue that the crepe stand currently faces is a lack of seating. You have this outdoor seating that's right behind Cafe La Bamba that often is open, but when the crepe stand is at its most popular, that space can be gone, and then there could be next to nowhere for you to really sit down and enjoy your meal without you walking a considerable distance. However, if we went ahead and moved it into Cafe La Bamba, well, now all of a sudden there's no shortage of seating, and it's all inside, covered, and air conditioned. Now, though I am imagining this as a quick service restaurant, if for whatever reason Universal wanted to go ahead and deliver on a full service crepe restaurant like what Disney has done over at Epcot, they could still maintain a quick service window for this restaurant. As right now, Cafe La Bamba has a window that's currently used as sort of like a bar to get alcoholic drinks from. You could retrofit that and turn that into a quick service crepe stand, essentially like the one that you currently have, except it would have a much larger kitchen behind it to be able to meet the demand. So you wouldn't have these huge waits and this huge buildup of people outside waiting for their crepes, and instead you'd be able to deliver on them much quicker. And listen, I know Cafe La Bamba, does attract some guests when it is open during the day, but the bottom line is, knowing how popular these crepes are, there's no question about it that if you change the menu over, this would, just demand so much more attention and would ultimately make Universal so much more money. And even if you did still feel like you need to have access to this location for special events and for VIP tours, you don't necessarily have to use the whole restaurant location. It's a big restaurant. You can go ahead and section off, a space or a room or two to be used for those special events. And then the rest of the restaurant can be up for grabs for regular guests. And you know what? If for whatever reason we're sitting here saying, you know what, that still is not enough space for these special events and for VIP tours, we need a more or less a full restaurant location and a full set of seating available for these special guests. And if you're saying that and thinking, okay, well, we have to keep Cafe La Bamba around, well, folks, there are other areas in the parks that you could easily enough find space for these VIP guests. One area that comes to mind is the upstairs portion of Confisco Grill. I know you probably didn't even know, honestly, that there was an upstairs portion of Confisco if you've never eaten up there. It's seldom open. They seldom put guests up there. In fact, the most play that this location typically gets is being used for annual pass holders on annual pass holder appreciation days, where they'll open this up and allow pass holders to go ahead and eat up there. But honestly, that has become a really rare event to allow them up there in recent years. And even when it does happen, it's a couple days at a time. We're talking about using this for 90% of the year for the VIP tours. I don't think that it would be an issue at all to go ahead and designate this space to VIPs. And dude, it's a ton of space up here, a really underrated amount of space up here to be used for guests to go ahead and eat their food. That would be a great place to put these guests that want sort of a secluded environment, a quiet environment to enjoy their meal, and would allow you to go ahead and use the valuable location of Cafe La Bamba for these crepes while still keeping those guests happy. And speaking of more money for Universal, if you have this full kitchen behind the crepe stand, now all of a sudden you have the opportunity to create larger and more enticing food combos that could earn Universal more money. Maybe instead of just getting the crepe, you get a side of something. I don't know, fruit. If it's a sweet one, maybe if it's a savory one, maybe you get a side of curly fries. I don't know. But the bottom line is you could create a more enticing meal package that ultimately could earn Universal more money, as they could demand a higher price tag for that sort of meal. So really, folks, when you look at it big picture, it is an unquestionable win for everybody involved. It is a better experience for the guests, who get a arguably better product at the end of the day, or maybe even a larger meal package at the end of the day as a result of this, and most importantly, don't have to wait as long to get their meals, and they will have always easy access to seating that is indoor, covered, and air conditioned. For Universal, they could demand a higher price tag for this food. They won't have to worry about guests being upset with them, and they get to go ahead and earn more money at the end of the day and make more use of this space that for a long time has not been being used to its fullest potential. And it's just an unquestionable win for Universal. It's an easy win for Universal. And honestly, I'd be shocked if a move like this, if something is not done to expand the capacity of the crepe stand in the coming years, I'd be absolutely flabbergasted, because what a waste of money and potential if you let that continue to sit there, just simply turning guests away, whether because they don't want to wait or they've waited before and they just don't even want to consider even tempting fate by going to that restaurant in the future. You have so much more money to be made should you move this to a full-on quick service or full service restaurant location. And speaking of current locations that are being underutilized at the Universal Orlando Resort, no greater culprit of this out there than the Blue Man Group Theater, sitting between both Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure. Click the video on your screen right now to see what could be done with that space. And with that being said, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.